England, the land of repulsive teeth, lizard people, and the least patriotic punditry on the planet. Also the home of the British Grand Prix. Let's get into the news then. And going into the weekend, there's quite a bit to cover. Let's start with the elephant in the room. Damon Hill is back terrorising the Williams Formula 1 team. Oh, you wanted to hear about Verstappen and Mercedes? Provided this is true, I mean, our source is Sky Sports, who their pants every time there's a blotch of rain on the weather map, only for the race to be as dry as the fucking Sahara. My hatred for rain baiting aside, Sky Sports Italy put out an article earlier this week that Max Verstappen is in serious talks to take George Russell's seat at Mercedes, therefore causing Christian Horner and Toto Wolff to fight like school children in the media pen, all while George Russell was bombarded by the media about having his seat taken away from him, despite having his strongest start to a season to date. If you happen to care about my simple-minded opinion, then if this is true, this might be the thickest idea Toto Wolff has had since allowing the team to fuck their side pods in 2022. Max Verstappen has developed a habit for sending perfectly competent teammates to the glue factory. Sergio Perez, Alex Albon and Pierre Gasly to name a few. But they had their reputations ripped to pieces, flushed down the toilet and shoved up Paul di Resta's arsehole before proving they weren't only fit to be taxi drivers. And Mercedes are apparently willing to bin off their only race winner this year for the Dutchman, and in the process turn their 18-year-old rookie into the next patient admitted to the Max Verstappen teammate's mental asylum. So to be short, this is an utterly bonkers idea, and if it does happen, I'll get a tattoo of Nikita Mazepin's face on the top of my arm. Elsewhere, the FIA are back in the headlines, because that's worked out so well for them in the past. Except this time it was actually good news, as ex-race steward Tim Mayer has just announced he's running for FIA president against Emirati Hitler over here. For those unaware, Mohammed bin Syndrome fired Mayer from his job last November for apparent personal reasons. Those being that Mayer connected two of his brain cells to realise swearing in a press conference is not worthy of being sent to the mines for. Big Ben really does have the personality of a used condom. But getting back to Mayer, and should he win, and let's be honest, it's pretty much a guarantee considering what a his opponent is. But quite honestly, this may be the greatest metaphorical you I've ever borne witness to. Practice then, and in FP1, a surprise name will return to the top of the timesheets, as Lewis Hamilton remembered he wasn't supposed to be washed and set a blistering time to go fastest in the first practice session. Lando Norris was only 23 thousandths behind him, with a further 10th back to teammate Piastri. McLaren running a chrome livery, probably to remind their fan base of when they were last respected. Toro Rosso, or V-Carb, or AlphaTauri, or whatever the they're called now, rocked up to Silverstone after apparently letting the Make-A-Wish Foundation design their livery, with a fucking Sharpie. As hideous as this looked, it appeared to add some pace to the Italian outfit. Hadjar and Slowson, both in the top 8, come the checkered flag. Much further down, Alpine were having their usual nightmares as Pierre Gasly shit himself while doing a 360 through Copse Corner. Gabriel Bortoleto seemed inspired by Gasly and won up the Frenchman's Copse donuts, spreading diarrhea all over the circuit in the process. Yuki Tsunoda was given a preview of the end of the season when he was chucked out of his Red Bull and replaced by 17-year-old Arvid Lindblad.
Now I'm panicking.
Yeah, don't panic.
No, I am, because I'm going to lose my job.
FP2, and the question on everybody's mind, how exactly were Ferrari going to f*** it up now? Well, they wouldn't in FP2 at least. Carlos Sainz clearly jealous of his former car, attempting to assassinate Hamilton on the exit of Luffield. Max Verstappen chose not to scream or shout down the radio at the appalling state of his Red Bull, since apparently he's f***ing off at the end of the year. And star of my previous video, Lance Stroll, demonstrated exactly why he should be amongst the best drivers in the world with this pathetic spin at turn 3. Moving into Saturday, Gabriel Bortoleto realised how close he was to binning it in Copse, so guess who finished the job Saturday morning? Surprisingly, that wouldn't be the thickest moment of the session, as Ollie Behrman paid tribute to Nikita Mazepin, apparently leaving his brain on the garage floor, when the Briton spun and crashed on the way into the pits. Max Verstappen has been quite kind to the rookie so far, but like the rest of us, this monumentally brain-dead incident left him in hysterics.
Oh my God, my question, bitte. What?
With Max on smoke, so were the Ferraris. Charles Leclerc fastest as final practice concluded. So while Silverstone turned into a sea of jizz with a potential 5-way fight for the pole on the way, Ollie Behrman wasn't quite done with his Nikita Mazepin impression. The Haas rookie getting done for speeding, so the FIA sent into the depths of hell, otherwise known as the back of the grid. Franco Colapinto's name has also been in the headlines, the Argentinian seat at Alpine being under threat from none other than Mulletman. Alpine being extraordinarily French this week, refusing to deny any of these rumours, even suggesting Colapinto could be out as soon as the Dutch Grand Prix in a few months. So obviously Franco would need to bounce back to put these rumours in the grave next to Max Mosley. Colapinto instead choosing to end his Q1 run by bouncing back into the barriers. Colapinto's escapades forced him to start from the pits, while the final runs for Q1 were incredibly intense, especially for Lewis Hamilton. Ferrari reminding everyone who they were by deciding to underfuel the 7-time champion, causing him to barely survive in 14th. Q2 was surprisingly uneventful, with the 2 Williams, Tsunoda and 2 out of the 3 Frenchmen getting the kick before we went into the fight for pole. Gasly dragging Barbie's sewage system into Q3 by some divine intervention. And as for Q3, holy f***, this was awesome. And the final runs began with Charles Leclerc, before he f***ed at the final corner and promptly chastised himself over the team radio.
Fuck that! So fucking shit I am. I am so fucking shit. That's all I am.
Norris would get up to the front row with barely any time separating him and Piastri. The championship leader would then have a massive tank slapper into the final corner, paying tribute to his teammates by bottling pole position. Hamilton was flying, smashing the first sector and a personal best middle sector. Everything looked set for him to take his first pole in 2 years. Unfortunately, he remembered he was driving a Ferrari and also fucked up at the last corner. And somewhere George Russell randomly spawned in 4th, but apparently nobody cares. Wait a second. Do you hear something?
What the fuck are you doing?
Max Verstappen, where the f*** did you come from? Sunday, and holy shit, we were in for a banger. We were about to get a 6-way scrap for the win, and then George Russell and Charles Leclerc decided to box for dries on a wet track. The only possible explanation being they hate fun. Also in the pit lane, Colapinto didn't even get the opportunity to start since his Alpine got stuck in 2nd gear. And he started crying, for some reason. So while Flavio Briatore went off to prepare his basement for his next victim, the lights would go out for half the grid, and so did Liam Lawson in his dickmobile. A plethora of other drivers seemed inspired by Leclerc and Russell, and chose to box for dries, despite the forecast saying it would rain in 10 minutes. Gabriel Bortoleto would round off his British Grand Prix weekend in the way he started. Up. Lapé and Max Verstappen's tyres had melted, causing an uncanny resemblance to Cardi B on a holiday. That would give Oscar Piastri an incredible run as a Magnussen Beckett, and the Aussie would hit the front. God, I hope that doesn't age badly.
A few moments later.
And the Lando Norris fans joined forces to piss all over the circuit. That would bring out the safety car, wiping out Piastri's 15-second lead. But more importantly, it made the drivers who pitted for dries earlier look pretty damn fucking stupid. So as everybody switched back onto the intermediate tyres, Isaac Hadjar would get bored of being the only penismobile on the circuit, and therefore bury it in Kimi Antonelli's rear before flying arse first into the barriers of cops. Shockingly enough, Antonelli would retire with a damaged diffuser and cause another safety car.
Put a bullet in my head and kill me right now.
So as we finally got to the safety car restart, Oscar Piastri, clearly being so pissed off with his lead being eradicated, he thought it best to take it out on his brakes. Unfortunately, this would cause Max Verstappen and the rest of the grid having to just avoid ramming into the Australian's prostate in the middle of the straight. Unsurprisingly, the Aussie received a 10-second time penalty, and Max Verstappen must have seen this as an opportunity to take back the win. His RB21 didn't see eye to eye with him, however, and attempted to force his eyes into the advertising banner. The Dutchman would fall down to 9th, meaning the new order would be the 2 McLarens ahead of Lance Stroll. How the fuck did that happen? George Russell, after realising boxing for dries was a stupid call when the track was wet, was informed by his race engineer that doing it again would be suicidal. So why the f have you pit for hards, George? entering the final laps now, and the track was drier than a camel's arsehole in a desert storm. See, George, this is when you pit for dries. And while last standing rookie Behrman sent him and teammate Ocon into synchronised f***ing up, Lance Stroll somehow turned P3 into getting overtaken by Baguette on the final lap, Lando Norris was untouchable. After undercutting his teammate, he crossed the line to take a dominant win at his home Grand Prix, and cutting his deficit to Piastri to 8 points in the process. But who gives a shit? I know we haven't mentioned him the whole race.
nicohulkenberg.
239 race starts, countless bottles, team fuck-ups, and shitty machinery, and he's now scored more points in the last 4 races than the entire Red Bull team.
Getting a reservation at Dorset now, you fucking stupid bastard!
Take a fucking bow, my German.
Stay up, stay.